You have heard me speak often about the importance of making a decision. Make a decision. You don't get very many in life. When I look at people, I don't see people who have made more than maybe 3 decisions. 2 or 3 decisions is all the decisions you get in life. Everything else is just going along with stuff. You go along with this and you go along with that, but once in a while you have the chance to make a decision. Make that decision. I'm sorry, but it's important for me to say this to you. It is complete. If you have made a decision in your life, it is completely obvious who else has made a decision. You can see it in their face. You can see it in the way they walk. You can see it you can hear it in the way they speak. It is completely obvious. It has that level of impact on who you are, on what you are. Many people go through life without making a single decision. They are purely a tool of the system, and then they die. And I am encouraging you, I am exhorting you. Make a decision. I know why you don't, of course. You don't because then you could be blamed, as you are now, since you're just going along with the system. You can always blame other people. Leaders, they're so bad. Those people. Isn't it comfortable to blame others? But if you actually make a decision, if you make a choice, then you know that from that point forward, there's only one person to blame. And that's terrifying. So, in response to that fear, I simply have this to say: grow up. I know it's difficult. I know. It was hard for me to make the decision to enter the monastery. And even then, I didn't really do it because I entered the monastery and I knew I should stay in the monastery, and my parents and everybody else did even more emotional blackmail than we usually have around here. And convinced me, no, go back to college. Definitely go back to college. You can always go to the monastery, but college is what's urgent. Now's the time to go to college. Then you can go into the monastery. First of all, that is absolutely absurd reasoning, and it makes no sense whatsoever, just as a note. You can always go to college. Going to a monastery is hard. The internal conditions for training don't last. I know maybe you think they do, but they don't. It isn't just that maybe the monastery goes away or maybe the master dies or something. It's that the internal drive to practice, if you don't keep that alive by practicing, A, it goes away, but B, you are practicing not following it, and you will get good at that. One of my students often says, if you know you should practice and you don't, then in a way that makes no sense, you start to hate the practice. You start to hate it because it represents your hatred for your wisdom. Every time you're going to practice and you don't, you are confirming, I will not follow what I know is true. And you hate that. And you associate that with the practice. And so you start to hate the practice. It isn't logical, but it's true. It's extremely dangerous to know that you should be training in a monastery and still go to college. And I knew that, and I went to college. I knew that what they were saying made no sense. I knew that I was giving up what is precious for what is virtually worthless. And I knew I was giving up my own truth. And yet I did it. And I tried, I did my best. I kept the practice going. I sat for a few hours a day, every day. I built a Zendo. I led retreats. I studied. Actually studied the sutras, not the other stuff that they have there. I did not go to any classes on religion, so that was good. I did a little bit. Kept a little bit of integrity, but only a little. And while I say often, sometimes you'll hear me say it, I hate college, I hated college. The truth is I didn't hate college. I hated myself. Not because of college, but because I was doing what I knew was wrong. I couldn't even follow what we say every morning. If it's bad, don't do it. It's very difficult to follow even that in a life. Just to do that is hard. Finally, I went back to the monastery, but that's fine. I'm glad I did. But in a way, I had killed that decision. I made it in a compromised way, which means I made it with compromised integrity. How sad. This is what I see happening all the time. You don't get to say you made a decision if you didn't. You did kind of, but not, but maybe pretty good. We all know if we've done it like that. You don't get the burst of power out of it. You don't have the power that makes the entire world align with that decision. You don't have the power that's more powerful than the world because you're half-hearted, compromised. And the world knows that. It's obvious. We can all see it. We talk about Bhagavan Buddha, don't we? And we hear about how he was born, and he immediately took 7.5 steps, looking in each of the directions, and put one hand up and one hand down, and said, in all of heaven and earth, I am the honored one. Is that what made him a Buddha? That he did that? Did that make him a Buddha? No, certainly not. Everyone does that. Every baby. Has anyone here been at a birth? Oh, wow. Well, Has anyone here been at a death? Okay, that's something. Although it is shocking, isn't it? It is shocking, actually. A few hundred years ago, if you asked the question, every hand would go up. And let's be clear, it is not the case, as is often purveyed, as is often, what is the word? Swindled, as you get tricked into believing. It is not the case that fewer people die now. 100% of people die now. And a few hundred years ago, 100% of people died. It's exactly the same. It is exactly the same. That so many people haven't been at a death. That's significant, actually. That says something about our society, not about anything else. Also interesting that we haven't been at births. A few hundred years ago, half of the hands would have gone up. The men, of course, wouldn't put their hands up, because it wouldn't have been appropriate to be there, but... Well, I'll just tell you that what happens is that the little incredible, shocking, miraculous, impossible little guy, like those guys, this total miracle that's totally impossible. I mean, it's completely impossible. This cannot be happening. It's outrageous. It is not, it doesn't make any sense. It's totally ordinary. There's blood and there's screaming, and it's ordinary. It's the most totally human thing. You are just a human being. You're not this special thing that all of you, us are. It is just complete. You are beaten down into a person. You are a human being, and that is all that's happening. And then out of that complete, you are ordinary, comes this what? It's impossible. This little, they're not cute yet, but they are unreal. And what do? They scream. This little, weak scream that fills the world. This little, tiny scream that is bigger than the world. You don't think that they're saying in all of heaven and earth, I am the honored one? That is exactly what they're saying. They're saying, here I am, and I am not ashamed, not like all you adults. I am not ashamed. I know I'm covered in blood and all that. I don't care about any of it. Here I am. And they totally open to everything. They don't say, this is the wrong situation for me to have been born into. There's no judgment, no sense of I know how things ought to be. There's just openness, opening to all 10 directions and screaming. Letting that scream out into all of the 10 directions. Everybody does that. That isn't what made him a Buddha. So you say, well, then was it that when he was 6, he entered jhana? Again, as I said yesterday, no. Everybody does that. Everybody knows when they're kids, that this is a total mess, that it's unacceptable. We can't live like this. And then they relinquish it and find something within. That isn't what made him a Buddha. Is it that when he grew up, he looked around and thought, this is not satisfying. This is a meaningless life. No. We all do that. We know it's a meaningless life. We're all horrified that we've been befuddled into living it. That's the same. So that isn't what made him a Buddha either. Then what made him into a Buddha? Made him into a Buddha is the fact that he was true to all that. He was true to it. He got to the point as an adult when he could scream like a baby. Got to the point when he was an adult that he could look at the world like a child. He got to the point as an adult that he was not untrue, out of integrity. Because of that, it's possible to offer something to the world that transforms it. That is what transformed the world. That he did that. That he was one of these rare people who lived in integrity, who lived in accord with all of these marvelous characteristics that we all have. That is what changed the world. He changed the world. He totally changed human history. I would suggest that he changed human history more than any other individual, at least for the better. He did more good than anyone else. And why? Because he had integrity. That is why. Please see this. Don't try to gain power and influence any other way. Don't try to take shortcuts. Too many people here are still trying to take shortcuts. Wanting some shortcuts so that I can get enlightened without having integrity. Having integrity is the path to enlightenment. Don't try to find another one. Even if you could, why would you? Do you really see yourself that way, with that little respect? That your integrity is the thing to be thrown away? So that you can get some experience from outside? That you can accumulate and decorate yourself with? Your own wisdom is what we're here to find. We're here to reveal. We're here to manifest. That integrity is what brings forth the ability to construct the cooperating causes conducive to the elements of enlightenment. And to unlink, unfixate these conditioned states as they roll through samsara. It is our integrity that does this. Basically, what we're trying to do is get to the point when we are unwilling to live out of integrity as soon as possible. As soon as possible. That is what we're trying to do here. So that you don't have to wait until you're dying to realize that you messed up your life. Please, get to that point when you have nothing to lose by facing the truth, by making these sacrifices right now. That's why people at the end of their life can face, oh no. That's why when you die, you review your life. That's the reason, because you finally aren't preventing yourself from doing the thing you should have done this whole time. And why aren't you preventing yourself? You're not preventing yourself because you no longer have anything to lose. Well, don't have anything to lose. Forget about tomorrow. Face this. Go through this process. Grow up. As soon as possible, get out. As soon as possible. That's the challenge. Okay, it may take a while, but make it happen as soon as possible.